Good morning and welcome to BeefLink TV, your daily dose of industry information. Today we're joined by Robert Windsor to discuss the topic of verified gross mass, otherwise known as VGM. First of all, Robert, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Okay, that's fine, Natalie. I'm looking forward to this.
So before we go into any more detail, can you explain what a verified gross mass actually is?
Yes, I can. We've written numerous articles about this, mainly probably 2016, 2017, 2018, when the amendment to the SOLAS, which is Safety of Life at Sea amendment, was made by the International Maritime Organization. Basically, at its very simplest level, the shipper or the freight forwarder has to provide two, and it's actually in the legislation, it says the ship's master, but in effect that means the captain, which you'd probably have in bulk shipments, but in most of our members' cases it is for a fully loaded container, so you have to provide a verified gross mass to the shipping line as part of your, if you like, your contractual arrangement with them.
Sure. So how is VGM established in the UK?
There's two ways in the UK. The SOLAS amendment did give people, the freight forwarder or the shipper, it was left in effect by the IMO to the individual country to establish how it was going to be done in that jurisdiction. In this jurisdiction, the UK, it is the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency who set the methodology. There's two ways of doing it. The first is to weigh a fully loaded container on probably on the vehicle still, so you have to deduct the weight of the vehicle and that sort of thing. So it's what we would call the weighbridge method. Many members back in 2016 weren't happy with just that, particularly if they're doing groupage and consolidation, and we were able to negotiate the second method, which is sometimes referred to as the aggregation method, and basically that means people, when they weigh their freight, they have to weigh it when the goods come into a warehouse or a facility. They keep a record of all that freight. They would have to be using calibrated and certified equipment to do so. And when they load the container, the very simplest way to establish the VGM is to take all those weights. You add to them the weight, the tear weight of the container, which is usually printed on the back door. And then any other things, and we call it dunnage, and that's all those bits and pieces that you use to make sure that the freight doesn't move around. So I know members, and certainly when I did it, we would take, like a pallet or something to put between different pieces of goods in order to establish the verified gross mass.
So why is VGM back in the news now? Why are we talking about it more now?
Yeah, there's two cases. One of them is a very complex case, and I'm going to try and pronounce the name correctly. It's a legal case. It was Sturmus Stylianos Monoproposy Epe versus Maersk. That's a bit of a mouthful.
It is, yeah.
So basically, it was a container loaded at Jebel Ali, and there was a variance in weight which wasn't picked up at the time. This led to litigation, and the court decided to interpret the law quite strictly in that matter, and went back to the situation that it is the shipper or the freight forwarder's responsibility to provide the VGM. So that reinforced, if you like, the legality of it. I have to be honest, some people were a bit surprised with the outcome in a way, because there was a clear discrepancy in the weight, and should the shipping line have picked it up? Well, they don't have a legal responsibility to do it. So the court ruled absolutely on the basis of the law. Whether or not that is a position which will be maintained, we're not sure, and certainly I know certain legal experts think that there's every chance that this subject will be revisited.
Sure.
The second incident was a bit more for the, if you like, from an operational viewpoint, and it was a case of the USS President Eisenhower. Bookings were made, and what happened was the line's booking agent, so it was somebody working for the line, there was a problem on the IT system. There were 40 containers in total, and somehow, due to an IT problem, the booking agent made a mistake, and they basically told the planning department of the shipping line, the people who work out where all the containers are going to go in a particular stack, the incorrect weights, and they were significantly underweight. So that meant that actually there was a container, and shall we say it weighed in about 23 tons. The booking agent advised the load planners that it was something like 6. This meant, in effect, a reversal of the loading plan. So the heavies were put at the top of a stack instead of where they should have been at the bottom. Now, at this point, I have to emphasize an underweight container is as dangerous, if you like, if it's placed in the wrong place, as a overweight container being placed in the wrong place. It has effects on the strength of the lashings, movement, and that sort of thing. I mean, basic principle is that heavies should be put at the bottom of a stack, and you try to balance up the weights in each stack so there's not massive discrepancies.
So with both those cases in mind, what should our members be thinking about in terms of VGM procedures?
Well, I think that's it. They should just think about them. How do you get the VGM? In many cases, UK ports actually provide a service like this so that they can provide a VGM to the member as part of a contractual arrangement. Members have to be very certain, to get that weight before the vessel sails, and they need to think about the procedures of obtaining that information from the port. I suspect many of the port, well, actually, I know certainly the top 3 in this country are all providing this service, and so talk to them if you want to use method 1, which is weighing the whole container plus everything else. The other thing is, if you are using method 2, the important thing is you can only use method 2 if you have been authorised to do so by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. So if you have anybody using that method or saying they are, make sure that they have got the authorisation and that the weight can be trusted, in effect.
It's great advice for us to end on, Robert. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Okay, thanks. That's great.
Robert has actually written an article for the May edition of BFILink. So what we'll do is we'll pop a link in the description below, which will take you to BFILink's homepage, and you can read up on the article from the 1st of May. That's all for today's episode of BFILink TV, your daily dose of industry information.